ZMB All Zombie Radio.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Limited Series Lounge, where we are currently discussing HBO's The Jinx, the life of Robert Durst. He's a real weirdo. I'm just making sure the live is actually happening. You know what I mean?
Well, I got a notification just now.
Okay, thank God. You know, sometimes it just doesn't go. Sometimes it just doesn't go. Hi, Marcus.
Marcus, I want you to know that I sit here and I go, "Grr," while your thing is on.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said, I sit here and I go, grr.
Oh. I'm sorry. The dog literally at that moment was doing that thing where she was like scratching herself, but like right next to the desk. So she was like kicking it every time. So I couldn't hear you. So that was all I could hear. All right. I'm going to start off the show with this. Do this thing. Like and subscribe this video, please. If you're here, go ahead and like it. I don't even care if you don't like it. Just do it. And I want to say thank you because I hit a milestone today. We're at 125 subscribers now on my channel. And that is not a lot to some people, but it's so many more than I ever thought I would have to me. So thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I really appreciate it. It's a big milestone for me. I'm excited. And when I hit 150, I'll do something special. Do a little something special. I don't know what it'll be yet, but we'll just have to see. Okay, all right. The live is up. We're running. Everything is going peachy keen. Let's talk about the second episode of The Jinx. The first season of The Jinx. Let me not confuse you. It's just the first season. Part 1. Season 1, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst. All right, episode 2 is entitled Poor Little Rich Boy. Fitting. Again, directed by Andrew Jarecki because he does this whole thing. Written by Andrew Jarecki, Mark Smerling, and Zach Stewart Pontier. As we know. Now, here's what I was talking about. Remember how I said the original ratings were rough?
Mhm.
Here's the drop off. We were at 0.752 last week, which is not great, but it's premium cable channel, you know, kind of a weird story. It's true crime. Like, it's not, it's not like a drama. It's not scripted. So people don't really know. 0.321. So it basically halved, which is crazy. So just did not do super well at the time. Now, again, there was a lot of hype after this, and this was one of those things that was like made on demand right away. So people watched this after the fact. And of course we don't have those ratings, which is really sad. I wish they would like add that up so you could be like, here's how it's over the last 10 years it's been watched this many times or whatever, but we don't have any of that data. Okay, take it easy. I'm gonna look for a description of the episode. Frankenstein is feeling especially active right now. Okay, you want to just lay down for a second? All right, there we go. My God. Poor little rich boy. Here we go. Nope, that's not what I want. Well, actually, maybe I do want this. Hold on. We'll just read crappy articles. We'll read crappy articles every time. I like it. Okay, sorry, making a lot of judgment. Esther Bloom, I don't know. Maybe you did write an okay article. We read an article after we talked about the ratings of last week, so we'll go ahead and do that again. This article is entitled "The 3 Most Interesting Revelations from the Jinx Episode 2." This was updated in 2024, probably having to do with the second season. So I'm going to be really careful when I'm reading this to not give you any insane spoiler. Okay. So, all right. This article was originally published on February 16th, 2015, and they have republished it to coincide with the Jinx Part 2. HBO's six-part documentary series, The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, is an investigation into a scion of one of Manhattan's wealthiest real estate fortunes, who may or may not have gotten away with at least two different elaborate, sensationalistic murders. The Jinx is Serial in 3D. Remember, this is again a reference to Serial, the podcast that was going over like gangbusters at this time. But Robert Durst is the anti Adnan Syed. Durst walks more than once. Filmmaker Andrew Jarecki examines evidence going back to the 1980s to look at how, why, and whether this defendant is either guilty or very fortunate or innocent. And as per the series tagline, merely the unluckiest man in the world. Episode 2, I don't think that's true. Episode 2, Poor Little Rich Boy, begins with Bob Durst prepping for his first extensive on-camera interview with Jarecki. As per the assessment of the Texas police in episode 1, he does still look like a librarian, or more precisely, a cross between a kindly old librarian in a sweater and Lord Voldemort. Once he begins to speak, the resemblance to the latter increases. His intelligence is undeniable, though his sense of entitlement is only marginally less so. He has no compunction about saying that he lied to the police when he couldn't be bothered to tell the truth, and that he hit his wife, even the day before she disappeared. His face twitches when he speaks irregularly, but with such emphasis that the viewer can't help but wonder if each tick is a tell. 1. Though he was rich, Durst's childhood was anything but idyllic. He was brought to a window one night by his father to wave to his mother just before she fell or jumped to her death. As one of his defense attorneys puts it, supposedly quoting Durst, quote, "All my life, I've had more money than I could spend, and it didn't make me happy," end quote. Durst grew up in Westchester affluence as the eldest of 4 kids. Everything was peachy until Durst's mother died in a sudden and macabre way. He even witnessed it from a window, having been summoned there by his father. Was it a suicide? Did his father know it was going to happen and intend to punish both mother and son by having Durst witness it? That fatality appears on screen as one of numerous actor recreations Jarecki stages. The technique could be neither tactful nor tasteful. It is a testament to Jarecki's instincts that the recreations work as well as they do and blend in with the first-hand documentation he has assembled, including home videos and pictures. As Durst reports, his life soured after his mother's death. He became sullen, angry with his father, and rebellious. And instead of joining the family business, he moved to Vermont after college to start a health food store with Kathy McCormack, the woman who later became his wife. Years later, Durst's wife, Kathy, by then an aspiring doctor, went missing. Though police scoured the landscape, no body was ever found. And though Durst was suspected, even investigated, he was never charged or tried. 2. Durst. Okay. Hold on. So I have to read this. This is insane. Okay. Like, I don't know if I want to say this out loud. 2. Durst may have dressed up as his wife Kathy on the night of her disappearance in order to make it seem as though she took a train into the city without him and slept at their apartment. This isn't made explicit in episode 2, but it is implied, is what this article states, which is interesting. We learned that on the cold winter night Kathy disappeared, she fought with Durst. She went to visit her friends, where she complained about Durst's treatment of her. And then she returned to her house, tipsy. According to Durst, he drove her to the train station and she traveled alone to Manhattan, where a doorman in their building vouched for her presence in the elevator. No one on the train remembers having seen Kathy, however, and she never turned up again. Either she disappeared completely, or perhaps because maybe Durst killed her and buried her in Westchester, she never went to Manhattan at all. Durst, as we learned in episode 1, has a history of using female aliases and of dressing up as a woman. This mute women. Mute, though. This combined with the shot of wigs in the opening credits raises the question of whether the doorman only thinks he saw Kathy. Perhaps what he saw in truth was Durst in his wife's winter clothes, sunglasses, and a wig. We also learn in episode 2 that Durst has no problem lying to authorities. He freely admits that he lied to them when it was more convenient for him to do so. 3. The only person in this series speaking up on behalf of Durst, besides Durst himself, is his highly paid criminal defense attorney from Texas. Kathy's mom thinks Durst killed Kathy. Kathy's friends think Durst killed Kathy. Former district attorney from Westchester, New York, Janine Pirro, thinks Durst killed Kathy. I'm sorry, this is a quote. I don't get along with most people. Most people don't get along with me, says Durst. From the fact that no friend or associate seems to be willing to come on camera and offer words in his defense, that seems to be self-evident. He is a singular, compelling, and occasionally terrifying individual. Whether he is also a killer remains to be seen. That wasn't a crappy article. That was actually quite nice. Thank you, Esther Bloom. That was in Vulture magazine, by the way. Okay, so we've gotten through 2 episodes now. Do you still feel hooked? Or are you like, meh?
Well, I did want to continue to episode 3, but it was out of frustration because what's wrong with him?
Durst?
Like,
I have no idea, girl. A psychologist would have to tell you that. The forced blinking alone is like getting to me.
yeah.
I used to, so that's like, okay, so that forced blinking, I don't mean like rapid blinking. That doesn't bother me. I'm rapid blinking right now. But like when someone does like, it
Right.
almost looks like they're consciously like making an effort to blink. If I do it, Lord strike me down. But because maybe I do, and I'm like, I like don't like what I see in myself or whatever. But I had a therapist who was a very strong forced blinker, and it actually was a huge deterrent to me continuing therapy at that time of my life because I could not handle sitting in her office. She was just blinking at me like that all the time. It was so unnerving. And so I like that they mentioned that in the article, like, is it a tic?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is extremely intense.
Like he already looks like this part of him looks weird enough. And then
Well, his eyes almost look black, don't they?
Like
he's got no iris.
So, okay. Here's why this episode made me mad. And I know that we only really have this because he like chose who he wanted to tell his story to.
Correct.
I'm like, how do you like I feel like badger this guy into doing your story?
Well, I think Jarecki viewed it probably as opportunity. And what an opportunity it ended up being for him. But Jarecki was also like a well credited filmmaker already. So he didn't have to pursue this. I think if anything, really genuine curiosity is really the motivator for him because he had done the movie. I can't even remember the name of it now. The movie we talked about last week, but the movie that Durst sees that's based on his wife's disappearance. He sees it and he goes, "This is the guy." So, like, Jarecki was already on an upswing. He didn't have to do this. But I think because he had to delve so deeply into Durst's story, wouldn't you take that chance just to see?
I guess because I feel badgered. Because here's why. You did all this preaching that you needed to find this specific guy. This is
Mm.
if you need the story told correctly and truthfully. And then we heard an hour of absolute hot garbage lies. Because
I, I don't know. He says some wild stuff during this. Um, so I am still hooked. Again, I know what happens at the end, so I'm like, how do we get from here to there? Is what I want to know. But
sure.
I'm sorry, repeat that because I don't know if your settings are switched to the echo cancellation thing again, but it's cutting you out early.
How is it now?
Quiet for some reason.
Oh, my phone too. What in the world?
I don't know. Now I can hear myself.
Ah,
Turn it back on. Okay.
Okay.
Much louder now.
Okay.
Maybe it just needed to like re-register. I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. Oh, I just say he's such a liar. That story he told about his wife, I'm like, I don't believe a word of what you're saying, sir.
I don't either. But what's interesting, okay, so there's two things I want to say about this. What's interesting is that he does admit that he is complicit in his wife's disappearance,
Right.
which is a crazy thing to say if you are claiming that you're innocent.
And then and I forgot about that. That was what did it for me. He said truth and this and that and tell the story the right way. And then started off with that. And then BS for the next 57.
Yeah.
I was like, what, sir?
I don't know. It's wild. It's wild. What's also the other thing I wanted to mention, which is very unusual about this, is that the entire style of this documentary shifts at the beginning of this episode. So we go from like very traditional 60 minutes unsolved mysteries, like 2020 style reporting in the first episode. Just very standard true crime layout. And then in this second episode, we start off with this hyper slick, like really produced interview. And it's so jarring, the difference in it, that you're like, what is happening? But I guess it kind of makes sense for Robert, right? Like that's who he is.
That too, like, yeah, I think if I ended this episode feeling so different than I ended episode one. It's not bad, but I just like you said, it's almost like what is happening between like his blinking and then his complicitness that we never heard because he's a liar, and his demon eyes. Like, what is happening?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I I can't tell you. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is we'll continue to do what we did last week where we kind of go person by person, but I want to kind of tie in like parts of what's said, like the transcript from it
Mhm.
too. So one of the interesting things that's stated at the beginning is that Jarecki directly asks Bob, like, what do you see as the downside to sitting down and doing an interview? And what is the upside to this? And Bob says the downside of giving an interview is that the interviewer will take what I've said to make me look as bad as possible. Because again, this is like always about him.
Mhm.
And the upside is that there will be something out there for me. I mean, this whole time since I've gotten out of prison, I've said nothing to nobody about anything. it's just a weird, it's just like a very weird viewpoint to have.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes sense because he thinks he's innocent. He hasn't done anything. Okay, so we do see a little bit about Dick Takeerah again, his high-powered attorney from Texas. He does the quote of like, Bob says, "I've had more money than I could ever spend in my life, and it didn't make me happy." Then we get a cut to see, we don't know what happened. So like, there's these weird cuts to these courtroom scenes, and you're like, well, clearly he's going in court. Was he innocent? Was he, because he was in prison, so like, was he innocent, or like, was that just his time that he was in there while he was awaiting trial, or what's going on with this? So they ask him like when he was born, and so we get this really weird stylized history of Robert Durst, this like almost like you're telling this tale as though it's like a fairy tale, like a horrifying fairy tale, like a fairy tale from the Grimm brothers, but a fairy tale. So it talks about who are his parents is Seymour Durst and Bernice Durst. His father is not alive. His mother is not alive. He was 7 when his mom died. And he states she died, quote, a violent death. Robert is the oldest. Doug is 2 years younger. He has a sister who's then 4 years younger. And then he has a little brother who's 7 years younger. And he has really happy memories from when his mother was alive. But his memories of the night that she died are absolutely insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if any of this is true. That's the other thing. Like, you can't trust it. He's an unreliable narrator. So you don't know whether or not any of this is true. Because if it is true, no wonder he's killing people. Maybe. Like, it's crazy. So his father came and got him and walked him over to a window. And it was so eerie to me that he kept saying, "Mommy." Like, so we can count. We'll do a mommy count. Okay, hold on. Quote, "I'd like you to come on over here. I want you to know to see mommy." And we looked out the hall window, out onto the roof, and there was mommy. And I waved at mommy. And I don't know that she saw me. It never went through my mind that, what is she doing out on the roof in her nightie? I mean, it just didn't focus on me. There's mommy. Wave at mommy. Okay, now go on back to bed. And all of a sudden, I heard the maid shouting, "She's off the roof." And it was a long, long fall. And the 4 adults who were there reported that she fell. Whether they reported that because they didn't want to say she committed suicide, I have no idea. And he states, "I never forgot." He refers to her as mommy 5 times. That's just in that one clip. We then continue to the funeral. People are telling me, your mommy will be safe. She'll be right there. And they're starting to lower the coffin into the ground. And I'm going, wait a minute. Mommy's in that box? Oh, yes, she'll be right there. Get mommy out of that box. I don't want mommy in the box. And I jumped out and tried to stop the guys from lowering her into the ground. And after that, they had a big problem with me because I would run away. Anyway, 9 times total. We're using the term mommy. It just goes to show that there's some sort of like frozen form of adolescence. We're stuck in some sort of, what's the word for that again? You know what I'm talking about.
I do. My brain just doesn't work.
Yeah, why can I not come up with it? Anyway, moving on. Okay. So we go through this whole story about what happens to his mom. And, it Bob is just saying like it essentially ruined his childhood. Like that was from that point forward, he was incapable of like really getting along with his family. Come around the age of like pre-teen, like early teen years, he confronts his father about what happened. His dad won't talk to him about it. And then Dick Takeerah gives a very weirdly touching remark about Bob, which is weird. And he says, Bob carried around with him a number of photographs in his life, and it's very touching to see what mattered to him. I'm like, have you been bamboozled by this guy? What is going on? Then it goes back to the courtroom, talk about exhibits. It's all photographs from like their wedding day of Kathy. Then Bob talks about what he knows about Kathy, right? Like she was smart, she was beautiful, and she was truly beautiful. And honestly, Bob in the 70s wasn't that bad looking of a guy either.
That's
He
what
was
I was.
quite handsome. Say it again. Something in my background is cutting your sound out. So like my sound is too loud, so it's like taking over. So I'm gonna mute and you just say what you were gonna say.
I said that's what I was talking about last week when I was like, he's kind of good looking.
Yeah, I wasn't seeing it, but now that I see these photos of him when he's younger, I can see it more now. I'm gonna try to mute back and forth just so it'll pick you up better. So this is when we get introduced to our first new character of this episode, who is Anne McCormack, Kathy's mother. So I'll go ahead and share a photo of her now. So here she is. Here's Anne, and Anne is like, she says the worst thing that ever happened, I think, really, was Kathy meeting
Yes.
Bobby. And then Jarecki asks her, if you had him sitting here, what do you think you would say to him? And she says, what did you do with her? Because he's the key. The key is with him. Where is she, Bob? What did you do with her? And so then shortly thereafter, now we know that Kathy's mother believes that she was killed or disappeared due to Robert. We're then introduced to Kathy's brother, Jim McCormack. Jim McCormack didn't meet Bob right away, but when he did meet Bob, he actually was impressed by him. He seemed like he was a really good guy. He had a lot of money. He was in high business, so he thought like this is the guy I should learn from, you know? And then we end up hearing Bob talk a little bit about Kathy and how to describe her. He states that she was really outgoing, she was social, she got along with people really well. And he says, so it was perfect because I don't get along with people and people don't get along with me. So they met in the fall of 71 and they were all they were living in New York City at the time. Well, Kathy was, and Bob was in from Vermont, and Bob wanted to open a health food store, which is just like so interesting to me, but like it seemed like he was really like a bit crunchy back in the you know what I mean? Like he's a bit crunchy. So he wanted to do this health food store and he met Kathy, and 2 months after meeting her, he's like, move to Vermont with me, or 2 weeks or something. It was like 2 dates, not even 2 weeks, 2 dates. Which is, I don't know. I mean, I know as well as the next person, when you know, you know. I thought that was a line that people said that wasn't true, but it is true because I met my husband and I did know right away. But I don't know. This is crazy. I don't know that I would have moved states right away with my husband. I ended up moving to a state I was going to move to anyway, where my husband lived, but I don't know that I would have done all that. But anyway, everyone assumed that they were in love. Like that's how they felt about Bob and Kathy, though. Like they were in love. And the next person that we meet is named, well, you can, depends on how you pronounce it, I guess. I would say Gilberta is her name, Najami, but Bob proceeds to call her Gabilti. Gilbilter. What does he say? Gilberti. Gilberti is what he says. I can't even say it because it was so against my instincts. So she's one of Kathy's friends. She calls Kathy her best friend. So they're quite close. Hold on a second. I have to close the door again because my dog went and opened it. Hold on.
Oh no. I'm very tired. Virgin.
Okay, sorry about that. All right.
I was just about to turn your name into a song.
I turned off everything in this room now, like air conditioning, fan, everything, in hopes that it would make your sound come through better.
Well, you don't have a heat stroke.
No, it's not. It'll be fine. It's only for another 30 minutes. We'll be all right. All right. So, Gilberta. Wow, I like messed that up so much. Gilberta, honestly, is a ride or die beast.
Mm-hmm.
What an absolute friend. This is the person you want in your corner. If you're not like this, I don't want it.
One, absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So, let me pull this back up. Okay, so her impression was that Kathy and Bobby are super in love. Um they ended up getting married like shortly after Kathy moved to Vermont with Bobby. Now Durst had already come from money. And his dad really wanted him to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know that he ever wanted him to take it over. He did raise the boy.
I
But he
feel like he was very much just one of those dads like you're also not gonna not do anything with your life, so you might as well just come and work here.
Sure. Now, I would argue maybe if he had stayed and done the health food store, maybe that would have been better for him.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, he seemed really reluctant to go back into business with his dad, but he did. So him and Kathy had to move back to New York. Now, to be fair, it would appear that they kept the house in Vermont at the time. They sold the store, but it seems like they kept their house there as like a place to go to, like for vacation or whatever. So then at this point, Bob really lets his personality shine. And we get quite a lot of really weird stuff out of him during this conversation. So, um, Anne McCormack states that Bob was not friendly and that he was a weirdo. And Bob states that Kathy's mom, Anne, was actually super interested in Bob and wanted Bob to like her and wanted Bob to talk with her. And why didn't he do any of that? And Bob says that her favorite reading material was a magazine called Yankee, which is a New England magazine, which is like so weirdly specific. Like, what a detail to remember about someone. And she would want to talk to him about the articles in Yankee. And Bob is such an ass in this moment because he states, I don't know, I'm not interested in talking about canning.
Mm-hmm. I was so done with him so many times in this episode.
That was all he had to say about her. He said, I don't know, she's just like interested in canning or whatever. So rude. So incredibly rude. Okay. So at this point, Jareki's like, okay, so it's like Bob meets a normal American family, right? Like that's what this must have been like for you. And Bob's like, no, it wasn't me. I was forced to spend time with them. And he states, Bob is supposed to be polite and cooperative and pleasant and engage in the same conversations that they are. And I just couldn't do that. And he said, as we're going back to the car, Kathy's crying and saying, they're all good people. They treated us with utmost respect. You can just put up with it for 2 hours, which any wife would beg her husband to do. And Drake's like, okay, well, like, did you agree to try that? Which is like a normal response to your wife begging you to connect with her family. And he says, no, just, I didn't want to talk about it. And so at this point, Jarecki takes this opportunity to ask Bob, what would you say if Anne was in front of you? So we're getting like the reverse. And he says, I feel bad about the way I treated you, that you're a good person. I am complicit in Kathy's not being here.
Mm-hmm.
Which, what's that about, dude? That sounds like an admission of guilt to me. What do you mean you're complicit in it? That's crazy. What are you talking about? So the next person we're introduced to, I'm sorry, I thought the photo was much larger. Let me see if I can get like a better photo of her. Now that I'm looking, it is Geraldine. No. Nope. Well, let's try this. Nope, still no. Okay. Well, I'll give you a second photo. I'll give you an old one and I'll give you a new one. Okay. All right. So this is Geraldine. Oh, okay. That's, yep. Oh, perfect. No, this one came up larger. Okay, great. So this is Geraldine. Yep, this one. Here you go. Geraldine is also a friend of Kathy. And she's got a delightful little accent, which I loved. And then I'll show you this too. This is Geraldine when she was younger.
Nice.
What a knockout.
Yes.
What an absolute knockout. I love that. These were like little hotties that were just hanging out together. This like group of girls. I love it. It's so cute. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I said I can see it.
Right? Yeah, I love that. I don't know. It's so sweet. So she gets introduced at this point, and we'll see her again a little bit later. But just know that she's in Kathy's friend group. She was the last person to see Kathy in New York, and when she saw her, they got back to the apartment, and the first thing Kathy did was call Bob and say, "Hey, I'm home. I'm with Geraldine." And Geraldine was like, "Do you always call him?" And Kathy said, "Yeah, he always wants to know where I am." And then Kathy was like, "Well, don't forget, you have to be up in the morning at 8 a.m. Because they were going to the South Salem house. They were going back over to Vermont." And she said that she didn't want to go. And so Geraldine's like, "Don't tell him you don't want to go then." And Kathy said, "Are you kidding? He'll kill me." And at this point, we go back to Gilberta, and we hear about how she was having a dinner party and that Kathy wasn't invited necessarily because it was like a family function, but that Kathy had called and was like just like devastated about dealing with Robert, and like they were fighting. And so she's like, I have to get out of my house. Can I come over? And Gilberta, what is happening to me? Bob Durst has gotten in my head. Gilberta says that of course she's going to tell her yes. So she has her come over and they're all having like a good time. But there were a lot of phone calls from Bob. And Bob keeps telling Kathy she needs to come home and yada yada. And she ends up leaving, which I'm like, From a domestic violence survivor situation, I do understand because it's like sometimes it's just not worth the argument.
Mm-hmm.
So I get that, but it is upsetting when you see it happening to other people.
Yeah.
Um, and then as Kathy's leaving, she stood on the porch and she told um, Gilberta, she said, "Promise me if something happens that you'll go check it out because I'm afraid of Bobby." Which I would not have let my friend leave. That's insane.
Thinking the
But
same thing.
yeah, but she lets her go and she's like, "Yeah, of course you can count on me." And she says it didn't even register. But again, this is the early 80s. And so unfortunately, and this wasn't like one out of every two like marriages or anything. It wasn't. But having a man who maybe knocked you around a little bit when you got into a fight with him was a little more normal, like
Mm-hmm.
normalized. It was a little more accepted. Like your husband may do that and like you may get into these arguments and then there may be like a little bit of hitting, but like it's just like a slap or whatever. And people are like blowing it over. So I'm wondering if there's some of that mentality in here. Is that thought that, well, he's got a lot of money. Like she's taken care of.
That's probably exactly what certain groups or people or whatever think, hearing situations like that. And it's
Yeah.
like, she's still not, property
Hmm.
or his child.
Yeah. And some of this, I think, some of this probably for Kathy, she's probably willing to put up with a little bit more because he's got so much money, because all of a sudden she's being very well taken care of. And she didn't come from a rich family. She did come from a very average American family. And so I think to her, she probably feels like she owes him in some way. And that's why she hasn't left yet. Um, so then all of a sudden there's kind of this like everyone's looking for Kathy situation, like where is Kathy? What happened? And you know, Bob's calling Jim and Jim McCormack and asking him where Kathy is. And so everyone's kind of like asking. And Bob goes to his family and asks, like, and essentially tells them what's going on. And they say, do not go to the police,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you do, which is interesting. Now, at this time, we are introduced now to Michael Struck. And Michael Struck is one of the detectives that works on this case. And honestly, it seems like people just really don't like him. The women who are dealing with Kathy being missing, like these friends that she has, um, they are extremely unhappy with this guy because he is just not he's not very proactive. It seems that like they can't really get him to follow through on anything. I don't
Yeah,
It's just a very weird situation.
he's the worst, actually.
Okay, hold on. I'm looking for okay, I accidentally closed out a photo of someone. All right, so we're also introduced to two more of Kathy's friends who I want to kind of move on to. I don't really want to give Michael Struck a lot of time because I don't really care for the way he handled this case, but it is what it is. Um okay, so there's a couple different things that affect like why she would actually be missing. So Bob goes in and tells like this whole crazy tale. So I'm gonna get to that because okay, so like hear these couple things, okay? So here's here is based on his interview with the police. This is what happened. They went over the events of Sunday, January 31st. Mr. Durst stated that he and his wife had gone to South Salem grocery store to get a newspaper. They came home for breakfast. Kathy went to Gilberta's house later in the afternoon around 3:30 or 4, and she took the Mercedes. Kathy returned back to South Salem at 7:30. She had appeared to have been drinking, but that she wasn't drunk.
Mhm.
Okay? This is Durst states this with the police. Frankie, please stop. They had a sandwich together. Weird detail, but okay. And then later left for the Katona station. I'm like, I don't remember how it was said in this show. Katona station at 8:30 p.m. And according to him, it appeared that she did get on the train. Also, a weird way to say that. He then returned back to the house in South Salem, and as he was going to the house, he had observed his neighbor Bill Meyer or Mayer, and he had a drink with him. He further stated that he went for a walk, later called his wife from a payphone, and that had occurred at 11 or 11:15 that night, and she stated that she was fine and that she was watching TV. After the call to his wife, Durst says that he walks home and he goes to sleep. And police, with this statement, are satisfied that 20-year-old 5'6" Mrs. Durst had made it to the city. And she had gone to the apartment on Riverside Drive, and the night doorman stated that she had come in.
Mhm.
But at about 11:30 on Sunday night. So the time is off. Even according to Durst, the time is off. I am getting really annoyed with my phone. Oh my god. Okay. All right, so he states he saw her. And there's also a statement that she called the dean at Albert Einstein College of Medicine and said that she was sick and she wouldn't be in. It's just a little bit weird. She had talked on the telephone with her husband and a supervisor at a medical center, and then she just vanished. Just disappeared. Nobody's heard her. There's no crime scene. There's no telephone activity. There's no checking account activity. No credit card activity. She just disappeared off the face of the earth. So then Jim McCormick calls and talks to Lieutenant Gibbons, who we have not been introduced to yet, but Jim calls, and Lieutenant Gibbons is like, "Hey, there's two ways of viewing this. I'm not going to BS you. She's either dead or she left voluntarily." And he states, "I'm not surprised if it's the second. She left voluntarily because this guy comes in and states that his wife is gone, and she's like probably shacking up with some other dude, or she's just tired of this guy." Because he says, because he's a banana and she doesn't want to involve herself with him anymore. So she took off. It happens all the time. Which is wild. Okay, so then at this point, it's just weird. It's just super, super, super weird. And there are fights that happen between them. She writes about it in her journal. So that's really where we're getting like a lot of the information from is her journal. So and she writes about every time he like hits her. So, they go to a party, they're drunk, they argue, he slaps her. They go to a party, they don't drink, they argued about something else, he punched her. It started to become worse. It was like from just verbal arguments to violence. Now, when Robert's pressed about this, he admits that it happened. He admits that they fight and that he does hit her.
Mm-hmm.
But he states that it was probably because he forced her to get an abortion. Which, when I tell you, I was slack-jawed during that part because I was like, what is happening?
So I don't know why there's always a part, and sometimes it could just be a word, it could be just a look in someone's eyes, it could be a sentence, whatever. When she was talking about her getting pregnant and her telling him, and I forgot what question she asked him, but he goes, and I don't have anything to do with that. That's her. That's on her. And I'm like,
Oh, yeah, the birth control.
mhm.
Mhm. It's an old school mentality. So, like, to some degree, I just kinda blow it off because 'cause I'm like, "Whatever." It's things people used to say, right? Like, it's just like, "That's the way it used to be." But I am more just appalled that she even married him in the first place.
Right.
You had this conversation. He told you he didn't want kids. Like, this is absolutely insane.
It was the only time I was like agreeing with some of the things. Because at the end of the day, I 100% believe that he was like, listen, I don't want kids.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, I believe him. I believe him when he says that part. That I do believe. Now, we are introduced to 2 other women who are friends with Kathy, who I haven't shown you pictures of, so I apologize for that. And one of them is quite small, and I cannot find a better version. Well, maybe I can because I was able to with the other one. All right, I'll give you the first one. So Ellen Strauss and Eleanor Schwenk. I'm going to show you Ellen Strauss first. I believe it's this one. It is. Here you go. This is Ellen Strauss. Ellen gets involved like later in this situation. Later than the rest of the women when it comes to looking for Kathy and dealing with what's going on with Kathy. All right, let's see. Here we go. Yep, this is a better photo. It's so weird. It's like the same picture, but the first time it comes up little, and the second time I can get it to come up. Here's Eleanor Schwenk, another friend of Kathy, who ends up kind of going on these escapades together. So Ellen and Gilberta end up being quite close when it comes to this. And I'll go ahead and I'll just show you Bob the neighbor now too. This Bob, this is the neighbor. He's going to come up in a little bit. We're going to talk more about him. Not a ton left to say about him, but one important detail that we will discuss. Okay. So, after about 2 or 3 weeks into Kathy being gone, the women who are friends with her state that they are quite angry. There's not much being done. So they go to New York City and they have a meeting with Michael Strutt. And Michael states he can remember them coming in. He said with an entourage from time to time, 3, 4, 5 girls, all really relating all these incidents of violence and threats. And they were the police were, the women state, kind of laissez-faire about it.
Mm.
They didn't jump up. They didn't take notes. They didn't say, "Oh my goodness, this like cracks the case." And so the women said, I think this is Gilberta. She says, "I became a little annoying to a lot of people, and I became a lot annoying to some people." As the case went forward, um, some of these things became like really redundant. But basically, they're all saying like Bob did it. Bob did it. He told us he was gonna like. She told us he was gonna do it. He did it. He killed. She's dead. He killed her. And I love this part because at this point, um, um, Andrew Jarecki is interviewing Geraldine, and and he asked Geraldine. He says like, "Oh, so now you've become junior detectives," and she says, "Excuse me, senior detectives." Because they're like all older women at this point, which I really love.
Mhm.
And they state that Gilberta got on the train at uh Katona. And I don't know why I can't say any of these New England places, honestly. Anyway, she made the ride into the city. She took the train. She asked everyone on the train if they had seen Kathy. She was showing pictures of Kathy. She said she did this for like 5 or 6 different shifts to try to catch like all of the people that would work the train and all the people that would ride on the train just to see. And then they went to the like medical college and center and like we're showing pictures to the nurses asking like, is she in there? Is she like in there, you know,
Mm.
comatose, nobody knows who she is or whatever. Um, and then Gilberta and Ellen mainly, they're going to reservoirs. They're looking for tire tracks. They were just looking anywhere and everywhere for their friend, which is why I said Gilberta is like absolutely a ride or die, because she is like so convinced that they need to find her. But anyway, then Ellen reads a page out of her diary. She says, 1982, Sunday, March 7th, midnight. Met Gilberta, 12 to 12:30, drove to South Salem. 12:30 to 2:30, garbage escapade, I called it. So they were going down there and they were stealing Bob's garbage to look through. So they would steal the garbage and then they would take it back home and they would spread everything out and they would evaluate what they had found. And what they were finding was that Bob was throwing out all of Kathy's belongings.
Sick of him. Sick of him.
So stupid. Clothes, school books, like personal things, because he knows she's not coming back. That's their assumption. Then they found a piece of paper with Bob's handwriting on it that had like a checklist of things to do. Town, dump, bridge, dig, boat, other, shovel, or car, truck, rent. Like how to get rid of a body, basically, is like 101 on how to get rid of a body. The detectives, however, kind of blow this off because they're like, well, what are you going to do with the shovel in February in South Salem? It's too cold. You can't bury anybody. And the women are so mad. And Gilberta is so mad that she's stalking Bob at this point, which I love. And she had to act like everything was okay when she would see him, but she is following him. She is investigating him this whole time, which I absolutely adore. These women are incredible. And she says like she hated him so much she could have choked the life out of him when she saw him. She hated him. Okay. So, we kind of get this story about like the McCormacks go over to Seymour's house because they can't get a hold of Robert at all. He's avoiding them. But they're able to get a hold of Seymour and they worm their way into getting invited to Seymour's house. So the whole family goes over. They're all asking like about Kathy. Does he know where she is? Does he know what happened? And he's being really defensive. And then Tom, Robert's youngest brother, comes in and is like, this discussion's over. And so that was it. They didn't get any more information out of Seymour. And Bob's kind of like, well, if she hadn't met me, she would have just had like a normal life. She would have kids. She would have met some guy from Long Island. Like as though this was better. Because I mean, I think we can all say like he obviously killed her.
Obvious.
Right? Okay, obviously he killed her. So what? Being killed by you is better than living your life as some normie?
Right.
That's crazy work, dude.
He lives in the Luluville.
He does. He does. He goes on to state that he hit her, made her get an abortion. He's not a great guy. He didn't want kids around. And this is where the title of the documentary comes from. Because Bob states he didn't want to raise children because he thought he would be a Jinx. Which is where the Jinx comes from. Okay, so then we get to the very last part of this. Because no, I'm sorry. There is a reference. Yeah, okay, so now Bob retells the story of what happens that night. And he fails to use the same details, which is interesting. So he's talking about like the night that she disappeared. She went to Gilberta's party. She took the car. Asked did he want to come. He says no. I don't want to go. It's the weekend. I don't like this. I don't want to go. And so she gets back at like 7 or whatever. And he says she's angry at me. She's loaded. Even though he specifically told the police that she was drinking but not drunk. And she's announcing that she wants to go to the city. And he's like, "You can go to the city if you want, but you're not going to drive." And so he takes her keys from her. Which this part of this I do believe.
Absolutely.
So that was the argument. And Jarecki is like, "So was it just a verbal argument or was this like a physical argument?" And he's like, "Oh, it was physical." And so eventually she agreed and would let me take her to the train. So I took her to the train and she just wasn't answering my calls. But she was doing sub intern at the hospital, so I wasn't worried about it. And then he states, "Well, once I got the phone call from the medical school, then I was worried about it."
Mm-hmm.
And so I just thought it was interesting that he changed the story. So when he goes to the police station, he's reluctant to do so. One, because his family has told him not to, but also because he's reluctant to go. And they're asking all sorts of questions. And he is answering them fairly truthfully at the beginning, except as it goes on, because they are saying they're like, "Oh, well, she probably just took off on you." But he's got too much pride. So he won't admit that, because that could have gotten him out of this whole thing. Saying like, "Hey, oh, she just took off on me probably. We were fighting a lot." He could have just said that, and probably he would have been out of being investigated for this. But instead he's like, "No, no, no. She's in medical school. She wouldn't take off, not without graduating." Which, like, you're counterintuitive of your own defense, you absolute idiot. And that's when he admits that he lied to the police. And he just said basically whatever would get them off his back. So he just fabricated the story. That's what he says. Didn't happen. I just, because they're like, "Well, your neighbor said you did not drink with him that night. And your neighbor's saying you never asked him to lie for you either. You just said that and assumed no one would speak to him?" And he's like, "Yeah, I didn't really think they'd talk to anybody." Just insane. So that's it. He's just like, "No big deal. I just lied. I lied a lot, actually." And that's it for this episode. That is what this episode is. It's absolute insanity. It is a wild ride. It's a super weird juxtaposition of the very formal interview versus these it was interesting to see the reenactments. I thought they were done incredibly well, very subtly, a lot of shadow and backlighting, so you're not really seeing faces. Very, very cool the way that they're done. And I do like that they're kind of done as the people are telling the story, so you're just getting a really good visualization of what exactly happened based on what people are saying. I mean, Bob is guilty.
100%.
Bob is guilty. But he is a free man in the interview. So what's going on there? What is happening there? So anyway, anything else you want to say about it?
Let me see. No, I wanted to make it absolutely clear that this asshole killed his wife.
I don't think there's any disagreeing with that.
And he spoke before about watching and listening to these stories and knowing what they are and still being pissed off at the end when the person isn't found.
Oh yeah, of course.
Like the child in me hears these stories, especially about adult wives that have been abused, and I'm like, they ran away. In Takeerah's fan fiction, they all ran away.
You know what it's the one thing I always loved about Unsolved Mysteries. I've been mentioning it a lot lately because I've been watching it a lot lately. Like there's a Roku channel of Unsolved Mysteries, like there is for The Walking Dead, where it just airs episodes of Unsolved Mysteries endlessly.
Why?
What's that? What's that?
I said, why would you tell me this?
Oh, I know. It's so good. So I put that on some days when I'm like walking around the house doing stuff, right? Like I just put it on because like it's short segments anyway, and I don't have to be super checked in. So I can catch one here or there. And they do the updates. And that was always the thing I loved about Unsolved Mysteries was the updates.
Mhm.
And so that's what I'm wanting. And you know what? You're going to get an update. You're going to get an update in this season.
Oh,
You don't even have to wait. It happens in this season.
what in the world?
Now, the rest of it happens later, and that's why there's a second season. But just know there is uh, quite a large twist at the end of this,
Oh,
and some things happen. So it's exciting. I'm excited for you to get to it because it's good. And also this isn't a very long season, so we're gonna be to it before you know it. Um but anyway, we will be covering episode 3 of the Jinx season 1 this next week at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Friday. It's entitled The Gangster's Daughter.
mm.
What an interesting title. God only knows who's that's about. Robert Durst in drag again, maybe. Um, and so we will be back at that time to discuss this. Again, if you could go ahead and like this video or subscribe, that would be super helpful to me. I'm appreciative of all of you. And I hope that if you weren't here, you're watching this afterwards and you'll go ahead and leave us any comments about anything that we missed or things that you want to just mention to us about this, things you think about this. But we miss our live friends. We miss our live buddies. But thank you, Marcus, for being here. We do miss our live buds. But they're busy. And I know they're busy. You're doing cool things. But I'm sad. Sad you're not here. But anyway, so we will be back next week, Friday, same time, same place for another episode of the Limited Series Lounge. I hope you guys have a great evening. You sweet, 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 precious angel babies. We love you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.